What's up, my good people? Welcome to the CJ Moneyway Show. This your boy CJ Moneyway. Welcome to the show, entrepreneur, best-selling author, and best-selling and co-author of an Amazon bestseller. Welcome to the show, Debbie Weiss. How you doing today, Debbie?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me, CJ.
Thank you for coming on today. Thank you for coming on today. So, Debbie, could you please tell us a little bit about yourself and about your background?
Sure. So, I became a family caregiver at the age of 17 when my father had a massive stroke and survived. And I was his caregiver for the next 30 years. And then when my oldest son was diagnosed on the autism spectrum at 2, I was always his caregiver, but that kicked it up quite a few notches. And then I later on became my husband's caregiver. So
Mm.
I have 40 years of caring for family members while still trying to have a career and all the things.
That's something. You say 40 years?
40 years, over 40 years. Yep.
Wow. So, Debbie, could you tell us about your book, Heart Whisperer?
Sure. In that one, that's the one where I co-authored. I have a chapter. It's a collaborative book of 20 different stories. And the story that I have in there is about facing my fear of public speaking.
Mm,
And when I turned 50, I had kind of an epiphany or an aha moment where I realized that I had lost myself.
mhm,
Not that I wouldn't care, I would never not care for my family members, but I did that without simultaneously caring for myself.
mhm,
And I lost who I was as a person. And at that time, I thought to myself, something about for me, the number 50 felt like I probably don't have as many years in front of me as I've already lived. And
mhm,
I don't want to be that person who gets to the end of their life and who looks back with regret for things I didn't do.
mhm,
And I didn't have anything in particular that I was dying to do. I just felt like there had to be more. And since that time, I've kind of been on a journey discovering what is more. And I have found in the last decade or so that it's when I'm able to face my fear and do something anyway
mhm,
that the gift is on the other side. And I was never one to stand up to my fears
mm. So,
until then, yeah.
yeah, I mean, you said something that was very interesting that resonated with me when you said the age 50. It's like, I got more years. I probably had more years in front of me than I do ahead of me. And so, I don't want to just be stagnant, and there's some things that I could have did in life and, look back and get up there. And he showed me all the opportunities that I missed out on just because I wouldn't move forward. And it resonated with me because, like I said, I actually started this podcast October 6th, 2023, and I launched my first episode on my 50th birthday.
I love that.
You
So
know,
when's your wait, I have to know, is your birthday in October?
yeah, October 6th,
Oh, it's October 6th.
1973. I mean, 1973. Yeah.
So I'm October 9th,
Oh,
except 1963.
Libra's in the
Woohoo!
house. No wonder we kicked it off so well from the
Exactly.
jump. Except for the Mets thing, I'm not cheering with that. I'm not cheering with that, Debbie. But yeah, as you say that, you do get to a point where you like, hey, just let me just go for it. If it work, it work. If it don't, then I can't say that I didn't give it a try, instead of having regrets like you said later on down the line. So yeah, I thank you for that. Debbie, could you tell us about your best-selling memoir, Second Thought? Maybe I can.
I certainly can. So, the title really comes from that story in a way, because my whole life I would say, I can't. I would always have a reason why any opportunity, small or big. I mean, I'm not talking about just major things, Why don't you learn to ski? No, I can't do that. Stuff
Mm,
like that. And because I was afraid. And I realized that if you take a minute after that knee jerk reaction of, I can't do that, and think for a minute, well, wait a second. On second thought, maybe I can. It changes everything.
mm,
And so my book is my memoir. It's about 30 different stories chronicling parts of my life. And the first half is about my childhood and how I developed the limiting beliefs that I had about myself. And then, the middle is about many, many different types of struggles that I've had in my life.
mm.
And then the last part is about what's been happening the last 10 years since I've turned 50, and how I've started to change things.
I like the dynamics. I like the steps that you just presented. So before we go anywhere, before that, so where can we find this book at?
Oh, all the usual places online, Amazon and barnesandnoble.com and all those
Mm,
places you can find it, or on my website.
okay, okay. So Debbie, could you tell us about your podcast with the same title? Maybe I can.
Yes, maybe I can. So yeah, it's all the same theme on the podcast. I have solo episodes where I talk about, different ideas or strategies or things that I've learned. And then I also have some interviews where I talk to people who have gone from a defeated I can't attitude to an empowered maybe I can, or yes I can attitude.
So how long have your podcast been in circulation?
A little over a year.
Okay. So I've asked a few people this question. This one's off the books. So what is the difference to you, or is it a difference between being a podcast host and being a podcast guest?
Oh boy. I much prefer being a guest. I find it very, very challenging. And I give you a lot of credit for stepping up, and like you said, you went from every other week to twice a week. I mean, kudos to you, because to do it right, it takes time and research and, learning about your guests. And I find that I might possibly be a little overcommitted, and my podcast becomes, I don't want to say it's an afterthought, but it's a
Mhm.
little lower down my priority list. So I
Yeah.
feel like, I don't do as good a job as I can, but I'm not beating myself up, because it's an evolution. And, there are other things right now that are taking priority. The
Yeah.
podcast will move up the list.
Yeah, I get it. I understand that, because like with me, this is my pet project. This is
Exactly.
what I'm doing. Although I work a full-time job and work doubles at that job and everything else, but this is what I'm doing. And so, like how you came on early today, I appreciate that because, as you said, and as you being a podcast host yourself, time is everything. You got to research, like you said, you got to research people. I got to go through your profile and come up with questions, make the link, so that you can come on and do the interview and
Yep.
promoting and things of that nature. So that's time. That's people's time, and it's frustrating when you waste when you put time into something and either somebody don't show up or they cancel at the last minute. It becomes frustrating, but you learn and you live and you deal with things because there's a brighter day because I meet somebody from New Jersey named Debbie Weiss who happens to be a Mets fan, you all. And so
Which you're not holding against me.
I'm gonna hold the Boston thing against you though. I'm not gonna sit here I'm not gonna sit here and deny that one, Debbie.
My
I
kids
can't.
do too. They hold that against me too.
Hey, kudos to your kids. I appreciate them. And maybe I can. You said something earlier And I'm gonna move on that note. You said no, maybe I can't ski. Well, Debbie, I'm not going there. I can't, and maybe I can't.
Me too.
Maybe I ain't. You know what I'm saying?
But I can't ski, but I did try.
I'm not gonna do
Now I know for sure I can't.
that.
Moving on to the next thing.
Oh man. So Debbie, could you tell us about some of the challenges you have faced in your personal life?
Oh, well, certainly my caregiving has been a challenge, and it's been a challenge for a lot of different reasons. And for the longest time, it was because I was trying to do everything for everyone and not take care of myself. And I thought that it was selfish to prioritize my own self care. And that was wrong because what wound up happening was I became resentful of the people that I was caring for,
Mm,
and I was exhausted. I was overwhelmed. I also work full time, and I wasn't showing up as the caring caregiver I wanted to be.
mm,
So that is definitely a challenge. The other is that I almost a year and a half ago now became a widow.
sorry to hear that.
And that has been the journey leading up to that because my husband was diagnosed with terminal cancer 6 months before he died.
Hmm.
But even a few years before that, he had other health problems that caused him to stop working. And he also suffered from depression and anxiety, which was exacerbated in the last 6 months of his life. So it was extremely, extremely stressful. So that period then leading into the period of grief and stepping into this, solo life. We were together for 30 years. So this is definitely a challenging time.
Yeah, and I give you kudos for moving forward and having the willpower to keep moving. Especially when you lose someone that you love, that you've been with and invested all this time in. And I can speak from my mother's experience how hard it was for her. As far as losing. As we talked before, I lost my father. That was like almost 9 years ago this November.
Yeah,
And the thing is, a children, we lose a father, but a wife loses a husband, and that's the dynamics are different. Especially when
absolutely.
you've been bonded with each other like that and everything. And so, I just pray that God will give you the strength to continue moving forward. Although we don't forget, what I'm saying, things or whatever. But as the saying go, life goes on, and
Exactly. And I've got to be there for my kids and like you said, they lost their dad. It is different, but I had my children later in life, so they're still young
mm,
adults. They're in 21 and 23, two
hmm,
boys I have. And yeah, it's it's young to lose your dad, so
yeah,
it's difficult for them too. So I have to be here for all of us.
and I pray that God will continue giving you the strength and continue blessing your family because if you haven't been through it, you don't understand it.
Right.
And
Exactly.
so, and when that time comes, everybody is there. And the support system is there, and everybody is consoling you and this and that. But then when it's over with, that's when the real, what I'm saying, grieve and come to
Exactly.
all those people, they're not
That's
there.
that's right. They go back to their regular lives,
Hmm.
right? And you're looking around saying nothing will ever feel regular again.
Yeah.
It'll never feel the same. I actually wrote my memoir while my husband was dying,
Mm,
and I had been contemplating signing up for this 12-week course to help first time authors since I had no idea what I was doing
hmm.
write write their book. And I was thinking about it and almost had said yes. And then my husband was diagnosed. And so, of course, I said, how am I doing this now? I was going to say no. And at the time, I was seeing a therapist and I told her, and she said, I disagree with you. I actually think this is the perfect time because you're going to need something
Mm-hmm.
separate from what's going on in, your world right now that's just for you. And she was right because it almost turned into my own form of self-care, and I made it a priority every day. I would get up and I'd write at 6 o'clock in the morning when my husband was still sleeping, or if he didn't need me for an hour in the afternoon, I'd say, I'm going upstairs, and unless it's an emergency, don't bother me. And when he was in the hospital, I would bring my computer and my snacks and my drinks. It looked like I was moving in, and I'd go there every day. And when he was napping, in the hospital, I'd open my computer and I'd write. And when he died, I was 3 chapters shy of finishing.
Mm.
And the first draft was due to the editor 2 weeks later. And of course, she said, don't be ridiculous. We'll extend the timeline under the circumstances. And just like you said, after everyone left, I said, you know what? No, I'm going to make that deadline because it helped me while he was dying.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's going to help me because it's going to give me something else to focus on, when kind of my world is falling apart. And that's what I did. And
Uh,
it was hard, but it was helpful.
yeah, I mean, I'm just listening to you. And I'm listening to your story, and I'm just sitting here thinking how amazing is he to be preparing us for our next level when we going through a tragic situation, but he's building us in other areas of our lives so that when this comes, because this shall pass too.
Yep,
And so when this passes over, he has already given us comfort in something else. Although like we say, you'll never forget about this, but I'm not going to dwell on that for the rest of my life. The memories, that we shared would always
sure.
be there. But he has given me another stepping stone to move forward. So I commend you on that, Debbie. I really do for
Thank you.
just continue doing the things that you're doing. So Debbie, when you speak about a victim's mentality,
Mm.
what do you actually mean by
Oh boy. I'll never forget when I realized, oh crap, I think that's me.
that?
So for the majority of my life, I blamed everything and everyone else for my life circumstances except for myself. You know, all of the things had happened to me. My father having the stroke, my son, I had infertility struggles, I have had a lifelong weight issue, I've, so many different things, right?
Hmm.
And I would look at my friends and I'd say, yeah, they have problems, but they're nothing like mine. And even they would feed into that and say, oh my goodness, I never knew anyone who just keeps having one thing after another. And I said, oh yeah, ooh, poor me. You know, uh, why me? Why did
Hmm.
this have to happen to me?
Hmm.
And that was living like a victim. And I was not taking responsibility. Everybody has stuff, and some of us have more stuff than others at different times in our lives, right? But it's how we respond to these things that makes us who we are.
Hmm.
And instead of pointing fingers at everyone or everything else, it was time to turn the finger and look in the mirror,
Yeah.
you know?
uh, yeah. I agree with you. I think Michael Jackson had one of the best songs ever that people really didn't pay attention to when he say the man in the
Man in
mirror.
the mirror.
Yeah,
Yep.
the man in the mirror. You have to take accountability for your actions and your thoughts and the things that you have done in life. So yeah, so sometimes, and that's a hard reality right there, Dad.
It
That's that
is.
that's one of the hardest things to do, is to sit there and hold yourself accountable for what you feel, saying, has been done to you. I was listening to you as you said. I don't know how much, you know, a Bible person you are, or your religion or anything, but it made me think of the story of Job when you said that, like, your friend said, well, everything's just happening, back to back to back to back. And so how do you sustain that? Sometimes it's a test to us on how we endure trials and tribulations. As you said, are we gonna curse them, or are we still gonna give them, the glory and the honor in spite of what we're going through? Because he know better than we do, you know.
Well,
So
and right. And honestly, looking back now, right? That's what's made me the person I am today,
mhm,
going through those things and finding out things about myself, and never realizing just how much strength I actually do have.
mhm,
I think so many times people would look at different things that I was going through and they're like, oh, I don't know how you do that. I could never do that. And I couldn't stand when people said that to me, because
mhm.
you know what? If you were faced with this situation, you would do it.
You, yeah,
You
you
would
don't know
do it.
what your strength, you know what I'm saying? You just, some people can make it, some people can't.
Yeah,
I don't want to get into that, but some
right.
people just have that. If I got to go through it, I'm gonna go through it. I'm not going to quit and give up, because, as you said earlier, because I have more things to live for. I got two young boys that I
Yep.
still have to be a mother to. Things of that nature. I still have things in life that still has to be accomplished, through me, or change, like things that you're doing in the world right now, like writing these books. It's going to change somebody else's life. It's going to inspire somebody else. So there's still things that I have to do, moving forward. So, hey, keep doing it, Debbie. Just keep doing what you're doing, baby. I'm sorry.
Well,
Just keep doing what you're doing, sweetie.
thank you.
Uh,
I will.
so, Debbie, how did you begin to change once you realized that you were in control of your life?
So, the very first thing I didn't even, what I did was I decided that the first thing I had to tackle was my weight. I have, from the minute I was born, I always had a weight issue. And for those of us who have had this happen, it's just your whole life is dieting and feeling good about yourself, and then gaining back the weight and feeling crappy about yourself. And you go back and forth and back and forth, and you're always looking for the magic answer, and there is none. And here's another example where I would always look at the skinny person who happened to be eating, tons of junk on Saturday night. And I'd be like, look at her. She can eat whatever she wants, and she has this knockout body. And there's me. And I look at it and I gained 10 pounds. And even though there might have been, there is some genetic component, I'm not
Mhm.
there's no reason to go into that. But what I wasn't really thinking is maybe she doesn't eat like that every meal, right?
Mhm.
And so I decided that that was the first thing that I needed to tackle. And I approached it differently for the first time in my life. Instead of having a perfectionist kind of mindset, like I'm either on and I'm perfect, or the minute, I eat a cookie, I'm a failure. And I
Mm.
just decided that I was going to Weight Watchers. That was the one diet that, was had I have had success on in the past. And I said, I'm not going to worry about how much I lose, what I'm eating. The only thing I'm going to do is I am going to go and I'm going to attend a meeting every week. That's
Mhm.
it. I'm not doing anything else. And I did that for about 3 months until I was like solid in that. And I didn't lose any weight. But once I had that down, I took another small step. I was going to pay attention to what I ate 50% of the time or something like that.
Mhm.
And I just kept building And it was really a mindset shift. You know, I realized there is no deadline. The deadline is when I stop breathing. Like,
Mm-hmm.
this is going to be a lifestyle change. My kids used to make fun of me because they would see me eating something and they're like, "Is that in your diet?" And I'd say, "It's not a diet, it's a lifestyle." And everyone calls it that now, but 10 years ago, everybody wasn't calling it that. And they're like,
Mm-hmm.
"Is that in your lifestyle, mom?" You know, making fun of me. But I realized, so it was all a mindset shift, and
Uh-huh.
I'm not, at the goal weight, and that's cool because
Yeah.
I it is what it is. And when I saw how just changing my mindset changed everything, I realized that was like, oh, well, maybe I can apply this to other areas of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where it kind of all started.
So yeah, I mean, like you say, it's a lifestyle change, and the main thing I guess it is just being committed to what you're doing. As far as you set a goal, and a lot of times we set a lot of goals, and sometimes you get to them, sometimes you don't. It's just like saying, okay, like I work doubles a lot at work, right? And so, but if I don't have the mindset to say, you know what, I'm gonna work three doubles this week, and if I get to that day, and I be like, you know what, I don't feel like working today. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And I go home.
Yeah.
It's all in the mind. You have to build yourself up to
Yep.
what you want to do. Because if you don't, then you can change your mind at any time because you haven't, as we say, prep talked yourself. You know what I'm saying?
Oh,
Into
yeah.
doing
Oh,
that
yeah.
that
You can
this what
talk
we doing.
yourself either any way you want,
Yeah,
in or
yeah,
out.
yeah. In or out, in or out. So, Debbie, how has your daily life changed since you realized that you're in control?
Um, well, it's changed tremendously because I'm very, very lucky that I'm an insurance agent
Mm,
and I've had my own agency for 29 years. And I have an incredible group of women who work for me.
mm,
One for 20 has worked for me for 27 years. And when my husband was sick, I wasn't able to go to the office. I had to be home with him all the time. And I was the kind of person who was, just because I was the so called boss, that didn't make a difference. I was there every day and at the right, 9 to 5 or earlier or whatever later. And it was killing me. Like, I just felt so guilty. And after my husband passed away, and I spoke to my one team member who's been with me so long, and she, ran the show, and I said, how did you find it? And she said something I shocked me.
mm,
Her answer was one word, and it was empowering.
mm,
And I thought to myself, oh my goodness, this whole time I've basically been a micromanager.
mm,
And by me stepping away, it allowed her to step into her power.
mm,
And that changed everything for me because that gave me permission to be able to get in at 10, work from home on Tuesdays so I could record a podcast,
mm,
or work on my, I'm writing another book, so work on my other book. And it's kind of it was a self-imposed pressure that I was putting on myself.
mm.
And so I find now that I have such a different attitude towards my day, that even though I'm working and it might not be in my insurance job all the time,
Mm.
it's then working like you are on something that you love and feel passionate about. And just doesn't that change everything?
Yeah, yeah, it does. It does. Just to you don't know who you're making a difference for, or where this person might come from. As we look at life, sometimes we look at people who are closest to us where we feel as though that would be our closest allies. But in reality, a lot of times it's not. Things that Debbie may be doing, she's reaching people in Thailand, or
Yeah.
in different countries, and people that we don't even know. And so I think moving forward and things like that. That's the what a lot of people don't understand, like how far when you begin to do something like your podcast, when you begin to write books, like you're doing, and still maintaining the business, and having trusted people that you can confide in and believe in, that the other things that you're doing, the reach and the people that you're touching in so many different places is, like the lady said,
Yeah.
empowering. So yeah, kudos to all the things that you're doing, Deb. One other thing that I like to ask before we wrap up:
Sure.
what advice would you give to any inspiring authors out there right now?
No. Um, I think you have to hold yourself accountable because it's so easy to find an excuse not to write. Um, Writing my second book, interestingly enough, was more difficult because when my husband was dying, it was, it sounds ridiculous. It
Mm-hmm.
was easier or more important to find the time to write. And then when I had more of the freedom and all the other things like back in my life, there was always a reason not to write because look, I'm not a writer by trade, and I know that every even people who are, everyone is works differently.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I find it a chore. I mean, sometimes it's a chore, and then there are other days where it just kind of flows freely. You just
Mm-hmm.
don't know. But in order to make it happen, I do feel like you need to be get into a consistent habit. And the minute that you get away from that, it all falls apart.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you. I've interviewed some authors, and just my own experience myself, I understand exactly what you mean as far as not being a writer. I am not a story writer at all. That's why I get it. Somebody else re-edit it and do whatever. But it's still your thoughts.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying, and it's
Yes.
your thoughts and the things that you're doing, and I can understand. As you said. That situation with your husband, and how you had the time, or you made the time to do what you was doing, and how more difficult it is doing now than it was then. A lot of times, too, that still our minds, you still fresh on what happened, and sometimes you just don't feel like doing things. I can get it that some days are better than others, and then when you do pick up the gifts to do something, you know you can get turned away, and you got other things to focus on, and prioritize this and that. But I tell you what, Debbie, I'm looking forward to your second book.
Thank you.
I'm going to grab the first one. Um, what can we find you at on your social handles, on your social media, and things of that nature?
So my website is Debbie R. Weiss. The R
Mhm.
is important. Otherwise, you find a realtor in California.
Okay.
And so that's pretty much everything on social. On Instagram, it's debbie.r.weiss. And everywhere else, pretty much it's the same with the Debbie R. Weiss.
Okay. So, are there any other projects, anything that you're working on that we can look forward to in the near future besides
Yeah,
your second book?
yeah. So like I said, my next book is called The Sprinkle Effect, and it is essential steps to begin transforming your life. My first book is, like I said earlier, stories, and my memoir and inspirational. And this second book is a little bit more of the how to. How did I start to change my life, and what were the steps that I took? with stories sprinkled in there as well. And so, right now, as a matter of fact, right before this call, I just kind of finalized my publishing date of November 11th
Mm.
of this year. So,
Okay,
it's
congrats.
thank you. So, it's very, very exciting.
Yeah, the sprinkler effect. Hey, so today, my money way listeners, you have been listening to Debbie Wise. Go and get the sprinkler effect coming out November 11th. She has a book out right now. Maybe I can. Check out our podcast. Same title. Maybe I can. This is your boy CJ Moneyway. We out of here. Peace.